Okay, today we talked about multiplying square roots. So we have to remember when we're multiplying square roots, here's for our first example, that this square root of 3 is not 3. This square root of 3 is that. It is an ugly number, so we leave it as the square root of 3. So we multiply integers with integers. 2 times 4 is 8, and square roots with square roots. Square root of 3 times square root of 6 is square root of 18. Now, normally we'd be done, except for we have also been reducing and simplifying square roots. So we take a look at the square root of 18 and realize that it has two multiples, one of which is a nice perfect square. So we know that the square root of 18 is the same thing as the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. We want to do that because we know what the square root of 9 is. Square root of 9 is 3. Now we bring down the 8. We can multiply the 8 times 3 and we get 24 square root of 2. Okay? All right? We can also do the distributive property. And I don't know if you remember, say, the distributive property from algebra. You'd have a problem like this, and you can multiply 2x times 3x and 2x times 4. We can do the same thing with square roots, okay? When we multiply, we're multiplying twice. 2 square roots of 5 times both of these inside terms. So when I multiply whole number to whole number, 2 square roots of 5 times 3 square roots of 5, I get a 6 square roots of 25. Then I multiply it to the next term. Whole number to whole number, I get a 2 times 4, I get 8. But I got to keep the square root of 5, okay? So I get 8 square roots of 5. You're also multiplying by the square root of 5, just as you multiply by the 2x here. So then what can I do? I can simplify the square root of 25 into 5, and now 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, that's all I did. Now this problem's a little bit bigger. Okay, it's a FOIL problem, all right? So we learned in algebra that if you had, for instance, x plus 3 times x plus 2, you'd really multiply x times both of these, and then you take the 3 times both of these, okay? We do the same thing with square roots, okay? Same thing with square roots. So we got a 2 square roots of 3 times a 3 square roots of 3. I multiply those first. 6 square roots of 9. Then I multiply 6 square roots of 3 times 5, negative 5. I get a negative 10 square root of 3. Bring the square root of 3 with it. Then multiply the inside terms, the 4 times both of these. I'm going to go 4 times that one, times 3 square roots of 3, and the 4 times negative 5. So I get a whole number to whole number. I get a 12 square roots of 3. And then finally, 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Now there's more you can do. Okay, more you can do. We know the square root of 9 is 3. We know 3 times 6 is 18. We know that these are the same. We can combine these two terms. I got negative 10 square roots of 3, positive 12 square roots of 3 makes it 2 square roots of 3. So I've got the 18, I have the 2 square roots of 3, and I bring down the 20. Now these, 18 and 20, are both integers. I can combine those. 18 minus 20 is a negative 2. So I get a negative 2 plus the square root of 3. I wrote it twice because it's just sloppier. And that's all we did. And we did another problem with that. We did a second problem there if you want to look at that one. And we did a third problem there to practice it. And finally at the end we talked about perfect cube roots. We made a list of the perfect cube roots. Cube root of 8 is 2 because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Cube root of 27 is 3 because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Cube root of 64 is 4 because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Cube root of 125 is 5 because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Cube root of 216 is 6 because 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. And then we showed all the rest of them until we get to 10. Okay, and that's all I had. The homework today, we looked at simplifying square roots again. We went back to this rule. If you have x to the a over b, we know the bottom number is a root, the top number is the power. And so we rewrote those in terms of a power, and then of course on the other ones we did just the opposite. Okay, so that's all I have for homework. If you need any help, come see me, or for notes, come see me.